420 things grow in Ontario. What is that 420 things, you ask? What is that? Oh, snap. It's a blueprint for the new 5x5 tent. Shout out goes to Mars Hydro. Very cool things coming to the channel. Mars Hydro has been partnered with the channel for some time now, giving us a nice sponsorship with them, showcasing their stuff. Something's coming for this tent, boys and girls. Something coming pretty nice. So I'm going to get it set up. I got to get the hydroponic system set up, so I figured I'm going to do this. This is also brought to you by indoorgrowingcanada.com. Use the coupon code 420things, all one word, at checkout, and you'll get yourself a bit of a discount. They sell these buckets right there, and they sell all the other materials needed for this build, right? So I'm going to start with this. So what I've done is I've outlined a 5x5 chalk area, and then I've placed my buckets and measured from this wall to the middle of this bucket, from this bucket to this bucket, and from that wall to this bucket, and these are in the middle. As you can see, I've put the openings, the big side where the pots are going to be on the inside, and I measured, you know, to about middle here as being my mark, right? So I measured from here to the wall, here to there to the wall, and everything. So this is about as good as it's going to get. So once I do that, I want to outline my thing so I can build it and put it back in here. Because there's pipe, there's connectors, there's drilling, there's a bunch of stuff, right? So step one is to drill the holes. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to connect two buckets together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this one and that one together, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an area here on this bucket. I'm going to use, you can see this bucket, there's a line right here. I'm going to use this as my measuring line. I'm going to measure in between and here, pick the middle, and then you don't want it to be too low, right? Because there is a lip here, right? So this is going to stick out like this. Once it's going to come in from the inside and it's going to be sticking out here, you're going to glue the pipe on the inside here. So you can't have the hole, it's a 3-inch hole you got to use for these 2-inch. So these are 2-inch bulkheads. I got these on Amazon. I will put the link in the description for these. It's about the cheapest place I could find them. But anyways, they're going to go in there. And you can't drill the hole with a 3, you know, and do it down here and expect that to work because there's a lip there, right? All right, so I'm on that lip, and I've measured to 3.5, right? That's the 3.5 mark right there, and 1/4. Right, see that little dot? That's exactly where that dot is. So that's where that dot is. It's good. Always measure twice, cut once. But that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take the 3-inch hole saw, and I'm going to put it right about there. A lot of people on these say, I can't switch my hands here. I'm sort of right-handed with this drill, and I don't want to mess this up. So, yeah. Some say to run it backwards. Some say to run it forwards. I've got it good with both ways. So, I guess the preference is yours. I'm going to put this on pause, drill this hole, come back. Alright, so what I've done, guys, is I don't know if you guys and girls have ever done this before, but you can, my socket, I got this off of Amazon too. You know what, I'll put this in the link too. This has been really handy. It's got all sizes all the way up to 5, and I even use this for the pots too. It was a really good purchase on Amazon. I've been using it like crazy. But I take this off, okay, so now I got the drill bit so I can actually see. When you have that 3-inch on there, it's really hard to see your... Alright, so now I've got the pilot hole in the spot that I want. So now I can put this all back together, and then when I put it on, the pilot hole will only be there, and my hole will be perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to see where this lines up. So when I've done my measurement, I got my hole saw, it's going to have a little bit of a gap, right? That should be good. I guess we always want to do one and then test fit it to make sure it's right, because sometimes, that's why I have an extra bucket. Sometimes you need to play with it if you're not going to know what your is. But you definitely, I mean, I could have went up a little higher, but I want this to be as low as possible to get out as much as the water as possible, okay? So when I drain it and stuff like that. So I've got it on forward now. I'm going to turn on reverse. I'm going to do this. It's messy as all get out, though. Hold on a second. And then, boom, boom. Sometimes the plastic gets in there, sometimes it doesn't, but like I said, look at it. Dirty. It's on the camera, it's on the ground, it's everywhere. So yeah, and then it's in the bucket as well. So there you go, there's your 3-inch hole cut out. Now we're going to get the bulkhead. Get it out. Gonna leave that rubber seal in there. Right through the hole, perfect, fits, awesome. Get the nut on here. That's about it. So now I'm gonna tighten this up, get it ready, and do a little bit of a test leak fit kind of thing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the leak test passed, which is, I'm surprised because I skipped a step. And what you definitely need to do once you drill these holes is you need to clean this up, this hole. After the drill bit goes through here, the hole star, what are you going to call it, there's a bit of a lip. You can see it there. It's kind of a hard glare here. It's light. But anyways, see how there's a little bit of a burr and stuff? Like, it's not perfectly clean. You can see over here. Right, see that edge? So, there's a few things you can do. You can use like a scraper or a whatever, a razor blade. You just gotta be careful with the razor blade. You don't cut into this and make it a bigger hole and stuff like that. So, alright, so see that there? See a little bit of a lip there, a little whatever. So I just come in with the knife, kind of at an angle. So this knife is not very sharp, and it still does a pretty good job. Pulls it off. You want to get that nice and clean, so there's nothing in there to prevent it from leaking. Making a good seal, you know. If it's in there, it's bumpy. It won't seal and it'll leak. Right, so that's the top and the bottom. So there's enough room that I'm not interfering with the lip, and everything's going to be good here. Nice and tight, nice and flat with these square buckets compared to 5-gallon pails. These are 8-gallon buckets, but they're nice and square, nice and flat, right? So now this is perfectly going to line up with when I do my second one there. So that's my next move, is to measure out the same on the other bucket, and then get these together and glue them. All right, bucket 1 done, leak tested. Bucket 2 not leak tested, but here's the real test. Does it mate up? It does. Look at that, almost perfect. Actually, it is pretty perfect. Did the measuring twice, you know, cut once. So yeah, so now I'm good to go. Now I'm gonna have to get the distance between these so that they sit in this spot, and I can sit one there and sit one there. And then, so what you usually do is, you got that extra piece of pipe over there. I use a hacksaw, grinder cuts through that stuff pretty quick. But it, as you can see in here, there's a bit of a lip, okay? And then it's got to be glued in here, but you want to measure from that lip to the other lip, okay, which is kind of hard when you're trying to do this. It doesn't have to be perfect. I would like it to be perfect because I want it to fit in these spots because I'm a little bit OCD, but it doesn't have to be, right? It's in this tent. We got lots of room on this side, lots of room on that side. It's just to make it nice and make it as close as your measurements as possible so you can get the most out of your grow. Alright, so what I've done is I've inserted the pipe as far into the fitting as it'll go, and I've marked the line. So that's how much it sticks in. If I measure this distance, and I take that and I times it by 2, one for each side that I'm putting it into, right? Alright, so now that I've got my 2 things done here, I measured in between that one, and it's 9.5, okay? Then there is a little bit of play in the lip, okay, when you go in, okay, which is about 1 inch and a bit. Thing is, whenever you cut these, unless you have one of those pipe cutters that, gives you exactly perfect straight edge, you're using a hacksaw, not so much on perfect, right? So, in my setup, I've done this, and what did I cut these at? I'm assuming, yeah, 5 and a bit. 5 1/4, 5 1/4, 2 5 1/4s, which is going to give me a bit of overhang. But you got to remember that why do you have them cut in 2 pieces? Well, like I was talking about before, I'm going to put a coupler in between, right? So I can have a little bit of play while it is 9.5 to there, and there's probably an inch there and an inch and a half there. It's more like, 3 inches, so we go there. But I have the play with these things, right? So 5 and a bit, 5 and a bit. Those are my piece sizes. So I'm gonna put those in, put the rubber piece on, and see what it looks like. I'm not gonna glue it yet, I'm just gonna test fit it. All right, so I've got both pipes into the glue fitting, which I haven't glued, and I've slid my coupler over on the one side. So see, I do have a bit of play, not very much. I'm gonna clamp that, I'm gonna slide it over, and that gap is gonna be right about here. Okay, so I'm gonna have lots of space on the other side of this. This is gonna be fine. So now that that's done, I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Same distance away, up and down from the side. Do that, get those two done. Once I have those two done, I have those two done. Okay, and then this also gives me a bit of play here too, right? Because I can go, maybe tweak it a little bit this way or tweak it a little bit that way, as long as it's tight, right? Worst case is worse, those come with those clamps. You could get more clamps if you really wanted to too, right? Never had any issues with this, and my other one that I have on my other tent's a little bit crooked anyways. Now, that being said, the one I have on my other tent has this metal piece, which I'm assuming gets a little bit tighter and yada yada yada, but there's less, it's not as long, right? So this is a test. These are my go-to, but they were out, and these are like $8 and those were like $5, $6. So yeah, a couple options. There's also another option too. You can get an expensive plastic piece in here, compression fitting. It has a seal and a tightening on each side, and when you tighten it, it pushes against the seal and there'll be no leak, but those are not cheap. Not like $8 cheap anyways. So, all right guys and girls, on to the next buckets. All right, so I've got 4 holes cut, 4 bulkheads in, 4 little half chunks of pipe in between. I don't have that metal piece on there, that's the metal one. I just wanted to see the difference. So I definitely do have in this one, you can see like it's only on that pipe a little bit. Okay, it is definitely not as clean cut as this one. And that one has more. So while that one doesn't have the metal connection piece, it is almost, well, not double, but half more. 1.5 times the size of that one. So these ones, while they're cheaper and whatever, I know this one works. I know I've got a little bit of a crookedness on it on the one I do have. These ones may be more ideal, especially when it comes to the next step. So the next step is I've got these 2 buckets connected, right? I haven't glued them, haven't done anything yet, but I want to connect these 2 buckets and those 2 buckets. So really, I want to connect this bucket, which is 1 piece because of that now, to this 1 bucket piece, right? So this is where I'm trying to decide how to measure it, how to do it, because you can see I'm not quite so exactly in my squares as I would have liked to have been. So that's okay, I have all that extra room. But to be as close as possible, what you're going to want to do too is, now that these are pieces, you can see that like before I measured from this line. You're always going to want to measure from the same line on this bucket via this bucket. You wouldn't want to measure 3.5 inches. I know it's going to be different here, but let's say if I'm going to do 6 inches here, I don't want to measure from 6 inches to here because then I might not be lined up. So yeah, that's the next step. So I'm going to start measuring and picking this. I'm also going to want to go more than the 2 1/4, because 2 1/4 brings it up here, but then you've got this lip and this lip. So in theory, I don't see why I couldn't be here, because the water's going to be probably at least half. I don't need to be as low there. Yes, it'll still flow into this bucket, into that bucket, and when I drain it, it's still going to drain, but this one can be a little higher, I'm assuming. I gotta step back and think of this. I'm just building this from scratch, guys. I don't have any plans. I don't have anything other than I want 4 buckets and I want them to be able to fall into each other and then go into a reservoir. So a little bit of contemplation and I'll come back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've cut my first hole. So I've measured from this wall right here, 5 inches to the middle of this is 5. And instead of going up 2 1/4, I went up 2 1/2. So I gave it an extra 1/4 inch, which I can maybe have done it at 2 1/4, but 2 1/2 is looking all right, no big deal anyways. And there'll still be able, this lowest one, to drain to that one, which then this one will drain to that one, and then, yeah. All right, so now I'm not gonna do that one at the same thing. I'm gonna do this one. Measure 5, 2 1/2, get this one, make sure they line up before I cut my next ones. All right, so those two are still connected with the rubber piece. I've got a couple pieces of pipe in here, lines up fairly good. Now I'm going to cut the next 2 holes in those 2 buckets. This worked out all right, everything's looking good. I'm able to keep it still fairly close to my outline, so I'm liking it. And 2 more holes to cut, and then these 4 will be able to be joined together solid and do a quick leak test with this before I then come off of this bucket and go into the reservoir bucket. I just don't know if I'm going to come off of this side yet and come out the tent right here, or if I'm going to come out this side and come out the tent more over here. I got to look at my layout in my room, but either way, I'm still only coming out from one bucket, right? So whether it's this side, whether it's that side, in theory, doesn't really matter, and would be best for whatever your setup is. So yeah, be back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the 4 pods have been put together, fit, everything's good. Okay, I just had to play with the sizes. I got this down to almost exactly into that thing. But definitely the sizes, they're anywhere, you're just gonna have to measure it, play with it, cut one, fit it. Oh yeah, not enough. And you know what? That's sort of the beauty of these connector pieces, right? They give you some play. All right, so now it's on to the gluing. Yeah, he said, over, it leaks. Oh no, I gotta get that up. Wife's gonna kill me. All right, so I'm doing this, in there, coat it, back in, and twist. All right, so, into the pipe. This stuff, you kind of gotta give it a coat and give it a second to get in there. What it does is it's sort of like it melts the pipe, and it definitely like bonds really well. The stuff that I got on the ground wiped up instantly, and then twist. So that's as easy it is as gluing that. Okay, now you gotta let this dry, clearly. And once it's dry, it's watertight. So I'm gonna put this on pause and glue the rest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've had this out in my garage leak testing. So obviously these are the 4 buckets that are going to be in the tent, and that'll be the reservoir out. So I've put 30 gallons into this, and it was a respectable level, was not leaking. I am now just testing the drainage, okay? So what I've done is I've pulled out 20 gallons, no issue. This next bucket, okay, I'm not at the 5 gallon mark yet, okay? And I'm having to turn on the pump, wait, and then it runs for a couple seconds, and then it, has to trickle in from the other one. So like now, this has been sitting here for a couple seconds. There's a little bit of water. So it's been in there, a little bit of water, and then it's done again. So, yeah. So like the other system I have little small pumps in the one tote going to the reservoir, pumping it out just to get as much out. But it's like I'm gonna have to have 4 pumps in here, small pumps, to go from that one to this one, that one to this one, and then that one to that one, right? So this is not the small pump, this is a bigger pump than I have. There's a smaller size than this. I get them off Amazon for like 18 bucks a piece. Because I haven't even got out 20 gallons, there's 7 gallons or 8 gallons in the system right now that's not going to come out if I just drain from the drain or the res bucket. So I think I'm going to try to see how much I can get out with this pump, like if I had those small pumps, and go from there. So I'm going to put this in each bucket, Pump it from one bucket to the other, one bucket to the other, and get it into one bucket and see how that works. How much I can actually get out by adding these extra pumps. Alright, so one thing I have come to realize with these buckets is there is sort of 3 sections in the bottom. That middle piece, a lump over there, a lump over there. So regardless of, unless I had 3 pumps in each one or 3 drain holes in each one, I would never get it fully done. So by pumping water from one bucket to one bucket to one bucket, then to the reservoir, I can get it down to under less than 5 gallons still left in the system, which is okay. So I think that's better than the almost 8 or 9 gallons that I had in there before. And now, like I said, I have almost like a 5 gallon swing. So 5 gallon less out of it every res change, I'm on board. So now it's the decision. I could get some bricks and sort of raise up every one of these. And I actually have some bricks laying around my house that I have extra. So I could do that. Then what do I gotta do? I gotta drill holes in the buckets. I gotta get fittings and elbows and pipes, okay? I'm looking at the cost of those. Well, you know, it's gonna be X amount of dollars for each fitting, X amount of dollars, a fair bit of pipe to go, you know, a fitting, because I'd have to drain each one. You know, and I'd have to have them all high so that I don't have the reservoir. If these were just high and the reservoir was lower, well, the reservoir level would then be too high over there, wouldn't be the same level as everything. So, moral of this story, I can probably do it for 80 bucks in pumps and some hose that I already have laying around here that I could just put in each one and pump it from one to the other. I would only ever use those pumps when I'm draining it out. So it's not like they're going to add heat to it, and then I don't have to make more cuts, and I don't have to make more possible leak points, right? And I don't have to use the bricks. So cost effective, yeah, because I have the bricks, sure. Let's say I didn't have the bricks. So I got to buy the bricks, I got to buy the piping, I got to buy the fittings, and I increase a leak point, and I got to buy some piping. So if I were to compare those two, I think it's going to be easier to go onto Amazon, buy 4 very small, like 10 gallon per whatever I don't even know what they are. I'd have to go look. I don't have it in front of me. But like I said, I think they're 18 bucks a piece. Boom, boom, boom. For less than 100 bucks, 80 bucks. I think that's my way to go. I think that's the way I'm going to go, to not have to do the bricks, to not have to raise it up, not have to on those problems. Alright, so just a quick update. This is Amazon Choice. This is a 3/4 inch. It's got the fitting, it's got the elbow, and it's got the sort of screen there, which I think you would need if you're doing it at the bottom of the bucket, right, so the roots don't get in there. And this is priced at $17.99. So I would need 5 of those. Here's the pump I'm looking at. Okay, I'll put a link in the description for sure. 80 gallon per hour submersible pump. $12.99. So it's kind of hard to $17.99 versus these. So I'll need to get a power bar that can power all of them and put it on like a switch, but still cheaper. And I'm going to get the same sort of effect, right? So yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. I've already ordered them. Alright, so I'm going to start doing some of the fittings for the top part. This goes to the pump, and then this is going into my next pipe, right? This pipe here. And if you've ever messed with this pipe, you know that a heat gun is mandatory. Helps straighten it, helps get the fittings on. Look at that. That will not need a hose clamp. This one will. It's a little bit smaller. But if you're putting it onto that, like, look how much I had to stretch that on there. It would have been impossible without the heat gun. So you're building your own hydroponics, heat gun is mandatory. Alright, so now that I got this, I'm going to get into the tent and get some of the stuff situated there. Alright, so another tool to have when you're messing with this type of pipe. I don't know if it's a must-have because you can do it with other things, but you just put it in there, give that a nice little thing, a little crunch, cuts it off nice and straight, nice and clean, and away we go. So anyways, I've got this cut. I've got all of those in the room, sealed up, and now I've added, my wife's gonna kill me, I've added the port for the pump. So this is where the water is going to get sucked from and A piece of pipe's going to run all the way through here, go through the 10th, into the middle, and into these 4. Alright, so I've put in the bulkhead for my pump intake into the reservoir. Down at the bottom, come out, bend through the tent, cut a hole down below the zipper, over into the middle. Okay? Now what I've done was I put the out spout of this, and what I had to do was I had to cut a little bit off. As you can see, this piece right here, I cut this off the end, right? So what I did was I went, okay, I want to put it into the bucket in this top ring here. Right, I want to have it there. So let's see where that is, right? Boom, it's about that height. So if I go like that, I'll go that height, should be good. Now, what I've done is cut in 2 pieces of pipe in equal length, because I want it to be equal, right? I want it to be a nice manifold. I want it to be equal every time, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten this, but once I straighten this, it's going to end up about there. I'm going to go into there, okay? Have some elbows, have some stuff, right? But I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to go to a T, 1 to each bucket. But the reason why I'm saying this is you cut that down to height, make this here, and then what I don't want to put it right here beside the bucket. I want to put it at the back, so it's away from here, and it's flowing there, okay? Alright, so this bucket to that bucket, this bucket to that bucket to this bucket, and that bucket over to where I'm going to be draining it out. So, you know, not so bad. That plastic tubing's fairly cheap. Alright, so the next step, I've run air hoses, kind of taped them to the buckets, kind of put them around the back. We'll probably tie strap those, one across, up and out, and what I've done is I've hung my air pump. So this air pump, you don't want it to be on the ground, because if forever it shuts off, there could be some water that kind of gets back into it. So above the water levels. Alright, so the next step is I've drilled all the big holes for the buckets, for the plants, and now I've drilled this small hole here. That's because it's going to come out of the plug, right? So you got to be able to fit the plug through and the air hose in. Now that that's gone, you don't really want to leave this open, right? So I'm using this material here, as shown earlier, right? So what I'm going to use this is as a, I'm going to tape this up, I'm going to tape it to this lid, and then I'm going to cut a hole here. The reason why I put the hole here and not in here, because if I want to get in here and look, this is not really secure, and I want to be able to do this, and I don't want to have to try to open it here with the hole here and try to open it and pull the cord. I want to be able to get in here and look at the roots and go, okay, everything's good, close it back down. So that's why I put the hole there beside that. So, alright, I got the pump. Sweet. That was, I guess it was bugging me. But anyways, so now what I've done is I've taken the piece, and I've come to about where I want to go into it, right? This one I've already drilled. I've skipped that step. So what I've done, see that T over there, and then what I do is I sort of line it up with a piece of pipe, like this, okay? Starting to get a little bit, it doesn't have to be exact, right, but it's close. And then I drill that one, put that through, and then what I do is I put a piece of pipe all the way from here, all the way over here, and go, okay, I'm going to do it there, and then I drill the hole there. So then I've got a good spot, okay? Here's my lid, okay? And what I've done is I've taken some duct tape, and I've doubled it over, stuck it to the lid, cut a hole through here for the basket, and now this is going to block all the light, right? So there's the hole for the plug to come out, and then this will just sit over, so there'll be no light going through there. Alright, everything's set. All the holes are drilled, all the angle pieces are in. I got to clean up, obviously, the heat gun doesn't need to be in there. But I'm ready to add some water. So, I don't know if you guys have noticed that this black crap from the plastic drilling gets everywhere. Okay, it's on the sides, whatever. You definitely don't want any in here. It's going to get into your pump, and it's going to bind it up and just going to make your pump last a lot less. So definitely want to make sure you get that stuff out. As you can see right there, look at that big chunk just sitting there. So I'm going to vacuum this, and I'm going to start putting stuff together. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the first 5 gallons of water is in the system. No leaks yet. We're very low. Okay, So whenever I'm doing leak testing in a tent, it's really hard to see with the Mylar, right? How do you do it? Well, what I usually do, put some paper towels down underneath all the leak points, fill it up, because if it leaks, it's gonna hit the paper towel, it's gonna soak up like a circle, like you can see there. I did that one. Let me zoom in here. So I put my hand in the bucket, okay, and then I dripped it over here. This is not a leak from way over here, but if it was leaking on either edge, you'd see it, okay? It'd soak it up. So that's how I do my leak test. Probably. All right, so there's always a few stragglers in there on the top of the water, and whatever it is, whether it's hair, whether it's dirt on a fresh build, a nice little paper towel. Just give it a quick run across the top, and usually you can pick up a lot of the stuff, right? So, a little pro tip. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the setup is set up. The RDWC is in the tent, and it's DWCing as well as R'ing. It's going, it's bubbling, and it's leaking in this one spot right here. This T hose clamp will solve that. Pump's not leaking. Any of the major arteries are not leaking. It's not leaking over there. It's not leaking over there. None of those spots. So yeah, 30 gallons in here. Thinking that it might be a little bit high. It might be close to the pots, but I'm going to get them in and see. Going to put the air stones farther away from the plants, because if they were right underneath the plants, that bubble might be getting that water and nutrients right into the plant roots all the time. You want a bit of air gap, right? So it's going to be a bit tested. It's about that much. When you see those bubbles, it would be only like this much in some spots. So I definitely want to keep them away from the plant roots, right at the plant pot, right? But once there's a bunch of roots in there, it probably won't be any matter anyways, like in the 2x4. You're not getting bubbles coming on top of the water. The roots are keeping them in. So that's where they're going to start, and that's what we'll see. So shout out goes to indoorgrowingcanada.com. Go to those guys and girls, check them out. Use the coupon code 420things, all one word, and you'll get yourself a bit of a discount. Yeah, you can get most of this stuff there. Some of the stuff I got on Home Hardware, and it's like some of the stuff I got on Amazon, like the bulkheads. There'll be listed the parts in the description, okay? So check them out. I still haven't done a total cost of this build. Yeah, and I got other stuff, Home Hardware. I got the piping at Home Hardware, got the glue at Home Hardware. But the air stones, Indoor Growing Canada, air stone hosing, the buckets, the lids to the buckets, and yeah, the air pump. So yeah, that's about it for today. We're gonna get this going, get some plants going. I do have some clones ready to go in here. So once this runs for a little bit longer, to make sure I do not have any more leaks, I'm gonna dump some plants into here. So check out the grow log. That'll be coming soon. See you guys and girls tomorrow. Tomorrow, the next day, whenever it is. Like, subscribe, and do all that jazz. Yeah.